Oh,
So we're gonna be, Mike and John will be here shortly.
okay.
But they always usually get hung up in traffic, but we can cover a few other items on here. The all important one that we have to do, Meg put out her notes crisply again. So does anyone make a motion to approve her prior notes?
So moved.
I'm sure they're fine.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mark is remote for us today.
That's okay.
We can skip around a little bit. We'll talk about, I'll just give you an update from Friday. We had the folks in from the engineering company to do the dig on the site on Friday. We went with DNL, who came in at $2,300 cheaper on the quote. They had individuals there to do soil samples as they dug, so they didn't have to do separate borings. They went down 10 feet, 6 or 7 holes. No ledge that we found.
Good news.
That's good news. It was sandy, but it's too wet right now to test. We'll have to do the perk test,
Sure.
which we expected. So that'll be in the summer. And they're working with John and Mike, the architects, to make sure that they get their, speaking of, to get their designs to map the terrain.
So they dug the deep holes up on the high
Good
side.
evening.
They did the high side, but they
Hope
also
your ride
went
was
across the,
uneventful.
Yeah.
through the stone wall.
Came through Westboro.
And then down there with the.
Oh, that's a different way. That's better than Route
Bad
16.
accident.
Probably, they dug holes there in addition to.
Oh, wow.
Excellent.
Probably nice.
Bill company was only doing 22.
They did a bunch. Our highway department pitched in, and they dug all the holes. So they were there with their excavator. And then chemicals went off, so we'll get a report on that. They'll integrate their findings into the architect's design. So we'll go from there. So that's moving along well. No surprises. It was a little wet out there. I didn't stay the whole time, but they knew what they were doing.
Well, we have gotten 3 feet of water in the last several months.
Is that all?
Interesting enough, the hole at the top that we dug,
Yeah,
because they just wanted to do a test hole on the flat point, they were able to go down 10 feet and they didn't hit anything. No water at all. So presumably it should be all right.
the one on the table's funny, goes like this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 10 feet.
Yeah, so we'll
We have a
figure it out.
thumb drive to plug in from the computer to do a presentation.
I think if you get on the Teams meeting, you can share that with.
Should bring a computer.
We do. Yeah.
That might be the easiest way.
Is that the easiest?
So then we'll lose teams on it, your presentations on that.
So we can share it.
Go on, and then you share it, so then we still have teams.
Yeah.
Share it, just keep online and see it.
Did they document the locations? Do we have ties to each hole?
I do.
They did,
Why I ask is that would come in handy when, if we gotta put in system for the sprinkler system.
but I didn't get the information.
I just wanted
I'm
to,
expecting it from the report.
the test that they did.
They
did
thoroughly
request for it,
understood where they wanted to
where the holes were.
put each hole.
For sure, right?
I don't know. Did somebody look where the holes were or?
Yeah, I saw where the hole
Okay.
were. They look like they're in general places you were looking at.
Okay, good. Because we moved the building.
It's okay. They're close.
As long as we keep it in then.
I don't know, we just came through Westboro down Upton Road. It was a nice ride.
Until we go to my son's.
It's not bad.
From Westboro.
Okay, I just want to give you an update while we're waiting for this. We're going to go to the meat of the meeting here. Mike and John are going to present the estimates that they got from the estimator based on all the studies. We're going to look at numbers. We're going to see numbers. We're going to need to really think about what those numbers mean to us and see how we can maybe improve in different ways. But I'll set that as a stage.
We're also gonna look at the whole design of the building, so everyone sees the entire design
Yeah,
inside
oh,
and
you're gonna go
outside.
through all of it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna do a
good.
whole start to finish, so
And the packet you'll have for us are available, which goes into detailed costing, correct?
hand those out after we go through this, so that everybody's.
You want to keep us controlled. You think we're a rowdy bunch or something, Mike? I think you have the team in, am I correct?
I do, yes. I'm just gonna join the Wi-Fi. PD public.
Public PD?
Yeah.
Please.
What's the password for the PD?
That's where it is, the police department. I don't know, I don't use that one.
didn't PD? What they said earlier?
I think they did.
Should be something easy. Try Mendon
Should
PD.
be Mendon PD.
Try Mendon PD.
It's a very cryptic password.
What's the public?
Maybe you can drive mine.
If not, I can get it. That works.
It's still loading.
You want to drive it off mine?
We can just plug, yeah, we can.
I believe I'm in the Teams meeting, or about to be in the Teams meeting. Where we're at here.
You have PowerPoint on that, Phil.
Yeah. Back at full speed. Okay, private public meeting. I just need to make sure I get the right things. If you'd like to drive, you can.
Yeah, I'll drive and talk. Would you get it?
It's getting another, oh, you're in the meeting, sign it here. You sign it twice, can you?
I can come in a different way.
Kinda.
Yeah.
This way, actually, my personal one. I always send these to me. Well, yeah.
So you're in the meeting, right? If you just bring that up.
If I bring Teams up, right?
If you just bring if you just bring our PowerPoint up,
You okay, you want to
and
do
you're
it?
in the Teams meeting, you should just be able to share your screen with the.
I'm in the Teams meeting over there, though. Oh, but we can do that. Yeah, you are.
right.
No, because it's gonna think I'm on that computer.
So
We'll take a fob.
So you can, why don't you just join the Teams meeting from your laptop?
I'm trying to, but it says I'm already logged in.
He's in Teams here.
Oh, you logged in.
Because he's
Logged into
administrative,
the-
so I
logged
logged
into
in,
the
he's
room,
administrative.
Technology is technology.
So if we bring the PowerPoint up, Dave, and on this computer, you can just share that. Okay, so we could do that.
But can they, the people, can they see your presentation that are online?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, we'll try that.
He's got two phones there, one for each hand. I think I'll send you a message just to complicate it.
I'll just see if I can add this to the.
I'm gonna send it
Is
to
there a way
you.
to? He's got to that.
Yeah, Joyce's phone.
Yeah, it's in front of me right now.
This may work.
Oh, great.
Actually, you just point to me and I'll give you the slides. Yeah.
I think I can come in and,
So if you just.
I'm gonna, listen, I read it next to
Me too.
Teams meeting, and then it'll go, and then you can still have your laptop.
Oh, yeah, of course, that's coming. Yeah.
goes me.
And then she'll work.
You can just go to, let's go to that drive. This, I think it's a disk. Yeah, there you go, go over there, go to your, right there,
I do this up in a different way.
go to the USB drive. And then open. The PowerPoint one. The one in the middle.
This one.
There we go.
After you go up to slideshow. Key for this.
Everybody should.
Just open up, you can open up the PDF then.
Yeah, so
That's
exit
easy.
out of this, yeah, we have a PDF on here for this very reason. Just the one on top.
The bottom one. The other one.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, this is the one.
It's not this one.
No, it's the other one that says
What's this
updates. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Should get to it.
Right, 2000%.
And,
Teams and share screen.
yeah, share the screen. We'll do it this way. Share, move all the way over to next to the right, share.
Yeah.
And then
Click on window 4.
Which one you want to share? The other, where it says, yeah, that one there. There you go. So is everyone on the meeting seeing this, the PowerPoint?
This is Mark. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Thanks, Mark. Okay. All right, so we can, you'll have to scroll through these, but it'll be a little challenging, but we'll get there. Okay? Ready? All
You got
right.
it.
Well, thanks.
Buttercup.
All right, there's always a way to get there.
I need to get rid of Mike's little number.
I don't know if you make
Let's
this.
minimize that.
Okay. I think we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right, thanks everyone for taking the time to come out tonight. So on our last meeting, we talked about the various designs of the building. We talked about the many different things. We've changed the design a bit, but obviously it comes down to numbers. So tonight we're going to look at numbers, but before we look at the numbers, I want to go through the building, and I also want to go through how we got here. There's a number of people in the room that haven't been involved in all the meetings that we've been involved in. And so I want to take you through a little bit about how we got to where we're at today. Then we're going to look at numbers and really talk about what those numbers mean. So next slide, please.
We'll just make it full screen right here, that button.
It will, that might try it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just have to click or.
Oh, go back one.
So now just every time one down,
There
right?
you go. So a little bit about us. So we're an architectural firm. We are based out of Amesbury, Mass. and Keene, New Hampshire. I've been at this between 35 and 40 years. I still love what I do. We have about 20 years of public construction experience with about 30 plus projects in municipalities and in public sector. We have 4 senior center projects that I've worked on. I was part of a firm prior to this, Catlin and Petrovic Architects. That firm had about 40 senior centers. So senior centers are kind of in the blood. I enjoy doing them. They're a lot of fun, challenging. Of course, the most recent 2 include Walpole and Wellesley. Some of the people on the committee have been to many of the senior centers that John and I had done. On our team for this, so the estimate becomes a very big part of this. And so there's a lot of validation that needs to come out of the numbers you're going to see tonight. Where did they get the numbers? Who got these numbers? How do they find them? Are they accurate? Are they valid? And all that sort of thing. So our estimator on this is PM&C. They're out of Hopkinton, and they have 20 years of cost estimating experience in project control services. So during construction, they're invited into projects to help control cost, look at change orders, kind of like an OPM. So they're very familiar with looking at costs and involved in the construction industry, so their numbers are accurate and they're all market pricing and that sort of thing based on real world, and they're not just pulled out of a hat because they think this is what it should be. The other thing that I want to point out is that we have no skin in this game. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're not trying to get you to do anything, that this is the right solution. This process is about designing a building based upon the input from the people on the committee, Amy's team, and what is the building that they feel they need for the senior center. And then putting a design around that, and then putting a cost to it. It's putting a stake in the ground about this is a building, this is what it would cost. It doesn't mean it's the only option. It means that this is an option that we've all looked at. At the end of all of this process, you may decide it needs to get smaller, it needs to get bigger, whatever that is. We're not here to tell you what to do or say you should do this or do that. We're just here to bring you information and pull all the pieces together. This is a schematic design. It is the estimate you're gonna see is based upon, using square foot numbers. We're gonna show you what the information we gave the estimator to come to this information. It's not just, is our building this building or is it that building? We're gonna talk about what we gave them and the assumptions we made. So it's really important to talk about that before we get into this. Next slide, please. So, what is a senior center? So, the senior center here in Mendon is one thing. The senior center in Hopkinton is another thing. The senior center in Upton is one thing. The senior center in Walpole, Mass is one thing. The senior center in Wellesley is another thing. But ultimately, it's about volunteering, where people can get assistance with services and operations. It's about lifelong learning. We retire, but we never stop learning, right? We learn from cradle to grave. So this is a way of keeping people involved in the community, keeping people active, keeping people stimulated, and continuing with personal growth. It's about wellness, activity, and information. I have 95-year-old parents, and there's all these questions that come up every year about Medicaid, Medicare, and this and that, Part B, and I'm like, I'm 62, I don't have to worry about this yet. We have to figure out a way to get you this information, right? So it's all of those things about checking up on health. Where do they find this? Where do they get that? Information, access to services, and socialization is the biggest thing. As we start to age, we start to withdraw, we retire, our friends start to pass away, our world becomes smaller. Socialization is one of the most important things. So that's what these centers are designed to do. They ultimately are a community benefit because they keep people in their homes longer, and they don't need to go to assisted living or go to senior housing and that sort of thing. So it does serve a purpose. Next slide, please. So here's your current facility. It served this community well, but it's insufficient space for the services it provides and activities. It's not fully accessible. You can get in the door, you can get to the main room, you can use the restroom, but you can't use the entire facility. It isn't all accessible. It's outdated in many, many ways. The systems are outdated. It doesn't really provide the space that Amy needs for programming. And so we've looked at this a couple of times, right? This isn't the first exercise that we've done on this. I've been involved in this now 3 times. And so we're going to look at that. Next slide, please. So we'll call this Senior Center 1.0. This was Catlin Architecture provided, it was formerly Catlin and Petrovic, and then when we split ways, John finished this under his firm. So it was the first go around with this, which was a 14,000 square foot building. It was located on the current site, but it did remove the existing building and start fresh. At the time, and that was in 2020, so this work was done primarily in 2019, it was an $8.2 million facility at about $575 a square foot. And that was the going rate for a project of that size. And it seemed too big, too much to handle. And so it just seemed overwhelming at the time. So I connected with Amy shortly after that. Next slide, please. And so we'll call this New Center Study 2.0. And this started in March 2022. And we looked at how can we use the existing building and add on to it. So we did a study looking at that. And this right here and this area right here are the existing building, and we added on to it. And we looked at how can we do something there. And it was coming in at that point at about $4 million to do that. And so as we started looking at this, Phil was invited to start this committee or get involved with the committee and kind of look at this. And we started thinking, is that really the right thing to do? Is it providing the right amount of space? And it still wasn't enough space. Especially when you look at growth. So it's one thing to do that, but it was probably going to be 10 years and it was going to be some look at this again for either adding on again or abandoning that building and trying to build another building at that point. So the discussion came about Senior Study 3.0 that we started. We're now presenting it here in January 2024. And we went through and put this program of spaces together. We're going to hand this out to everybody once we're done and send it to Phil electronically. But we have a program of spaces that really starts to come out to about between 10 or 12 to 13,000 square feet of building. And what does that look like? Next slide, please. So then to decide, we looked at, well, it probably the existing site is not the best place to be. So we looked at a couple of sites, as you know, and this site became the site that, based upon your conversations, that you chose as the site that we'd like to look at to study putting the senior center. And so part of using this site is that we need to build a road into it. And does that road continue? We don't know, but it does provide access to the remainder of the site for whatever happens on that site. And so this is the location that we're working with to base this on. Next slide, please. And this is kind of what the site starts to look like. So we come in off of North Avenue. We have a site, there's certain criteria to a site for seniors to drive upon that keeps them moving on the site in certain directions. So it means that someone arrives on the site, goes and drops off if they want to, or progresses to parking and moves about the site. But once they leave their parking spot, they can go back to pick up somebody else if they need to, then circulate and leave off the site. So there's certain, keeping it simple so that there isn't confusion happening, there isn't a lot of crossing paths. These are kind of criteria that we like to use for working with seniors on site. Back up a second. So one of the things you're going to see is that we do have, it is a sloping site. The sloping site helps us in some ways because it allows us to have a building that has a full daylight basement or lower level, usable space. However, site actually start to build parking and roadways and that sort of thing, it gets a little challenging and causes us to have a little bit of some cuts and fills. We originally had the road coming in like this, but there is a spot that requires a lot of fill. So we suggested, Mike Dean suggested that we actually do some things with the road that actually work with the grades, because roads have to have a certain percentage of grade, you can't exceed that and that sort of thing. So this is now working, we've worked with Mike Dean to get this site plan working, okay?
And Mike is part of the DNL engineering. Was on site Friday.
So I have a quick question just about that. So this is different from what we looked at yesterday, the road? A little bit?
Yeah.
So would you end the road?
We would probably end the road here. I mean, graphically, we're showing this.
You would end the road?
We would end, that, we're gonna talk about what this road all costs. And, originally there was thought of putting some parking here that the school might use, but when you see the cost of that, it probably wants the school to do that at some point and not bear it on this project.
Or some other project.
Or some other project, right? Okay. So we took our program, there's someone at the door.
Oh, Joyce.
Oh, Joyce comes for a phone.
Looking the phone.
I did.
So when we take our programming, we actually end up with entry, we have lobby space, we have reception, we have office area, we have our library, which is not a library, it's a sitting area, conversation area, it's not, and it does have some books. Progress through, we have a kitchen, restrooms, and our big multi-purpose room that can be divided in half and used as smaller cafeteria, eating space, and another program space. We then have a lower level, so most of this, you'll see once we see the exterior of the building, is actually daylight, so it's got full windows, it's not built like a basement, and it doesn't feel like a basement. Down there, we have a game room, several classrooms, another multi-purpose room. This multi-purpose room is a larger space, a little bigger than this, that is set up that it can be used by other groups other than the senior center and locked out from the senior center. So if it is the Boy Scouts or whomever, they can't get into the rest of the building. So it is set up, they have their own single-user restroom, so when that's being used at night for a meeting like this, the senior center is safe and secure from whoever's doing that. So this ends up being about 13,000 square feet of space. We have an outdoor deck upstairs, and that sort of thing. So, other way, please. So this is what this starts to look like. So we took your comments from the last meeting that it really need to be sure that this fits in to Mendon as a New England town with a lot of character. As we came the back way, even though it's nighttime, we're passing by a lot of beautiful homes and a lot of ruralness. And how do you do that? And I can tell you as an architect, the biggest challenge is taking a big building and making it look like a New England building. Because putting these huge roofs on one building, it starts to look like an old Howard Johnson's or a Friendly's. So you have to be very careful. And we see bad examples of it all the time. So what we did is there was opportunities to break this up based upon uses and get it to look like a house with a barn. And so using textures of vertical siding and horizontal siding, varying some roof lines, window heights, doing some box windows and seat windows, and you get something that actually looks like it wants to fit in here in Mendon, we think. So this is a rendering of what the approach would look like as you come up into the drop-off area. So this is our entrance and vestibule. This is an egress here. This is actually the library, but we actually have an entrance here that we can, for deliveries into the kitchen. So that as food items get delivered, they don't have to go through the center. They can go around and have a door that they go right into the kitchen and the pantry, and that stuff gets stored. So we provided that information to our estimator. We also did something we call this an outline specification, because they're looking at these pretty pictures, but what's inside this building? So we did a 7-page document, which I just have the cover sheet here, which is divided by the CSI divisions, which is how we write specifications for buildings during construction. We do a very abbreviated 7-page that talks about we have carpet, we have vinyl flooring, we have this, we have that. What kind of toilet partitions are in the restrooms, and it's not all high end and it's not junk. It's somewhere in the middle. Durable, good stuff, but not something that is you'd see at the Ritz. So this really provides conceptual information. So feasibility study estimates are typically 2 to 7% higher than what your actually bid price is going to be when the project is bid out. You want that. You do not want it to be lower because you're going to go ask for money to support your project. So it needs to cover the project all the way through. We'll talk about what's in there in a second. Additional estimates are also completed once this project gets funded. You're going to hire an architectural firm, whether it's us or another one, who's experienced at doing this. They'll have engineers on their team. They'll also have an estimator. So the project will go through revisiting schematic design. It'll go through design development, where all the nitty gritty of what's in there gets picked out and how does the building get built, and then it goes to construction documents. We do another estimate two estimates during design development to be sure we're on target for budget. And then at 50% construction documents, when all the details of construction are completed, there's another estimate done again, so that you're not getting to the end, going to bid, and it's overbid. So so the idea is that you always want to have this in there. So we did this on your building based upon other senior centers that are being built currently. And so we have a per square foot price of the center of almost $500 a square foot. That comes out to about $6.5 million. We have our 3-bay garage building as an allowance at fully funded at 577. We have our site work because, remember, this site is going to have a fair amount of earthwork. We're going to have cisterns underground to hold water for the sprinkler system. We're going to have a septic system, and we're going to have a well. So there's a significant amount of work on this site. We don't have all that designed, so we need to be conservative so we're not low. So we have a site number of $3.5 million. In that, when I talked about that roadway, there's almost $1 million to build that roadway. So the shorter that road gets, that cost comes down. The other thing that we always do is this early in the process is we carry 12% contingency because the building's not fully detailed and vetted yet, right? So we need to have some protection. We have protection here, but we need protection there. That number starts to go away as the design is developed through in actual design and construction documents. That number goes down. However, the owner, which is the town of Mendon, carries a contingency on their spreadsheet. And the contractor always has a contingency on their spreadsheet. Two of them are going to total about 7 to 10%, depending upon what everyone agrees on. We have escalation for when does this start? We're projecting 2025. Fingers crossed, a building, whether it's this one or another one, starts in 2025. Nobody has a crystal ball, but typically escalation is about 4.5 to 5%. So we have escalation, what we call escalation to start. We have design and pricing contingency. So that's the design. There is a set fee that will be advertised. We firms will submit qualifications, but all of that comes out to be about $1.2 million. And that's based on percentages of what's going on up here. Architectural, engineering, and design fees are typically 10 to 14% of construction costs on a project of this magnitude in the state of Massachusetts. So that we have general conditions. Those people in the construction industry know what general conditions are. That is all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes that somebody's got to pay for. It's part of building your project, and it's just typically we carry 10% right now. That number does fluctuate as the project continues. So that's about $1.2 million. Because it's a public project, it has to be bonded. That's about 0.8% of construction costs to get bonded. And the town requires that, it protects the town. The cost of getting a bond is about $110,000. Insurance. So this project has to be built, has to be insured during construction for everything that happens, whether anybody gets hurt on the site, whether the building burns down during construction, whether something happens. So that's called builder's risk. That's about $172,000. There's $125,000 in here for permitting. We don't know what has to be permitted. We know septic has to be permitted, the well has to be permitted, and then there'll be some other permitting along the way. Town of Mendon probably won't charge its own town for a building permit, but there could be some things along the way that are in there, so we have to carry that.
Are there state permits? I'm being naive here.
The only state permits would be septic, well, and there might be, depending upon where that site is, if there's any conservation or DES permits. Then we have something called profit and overhead. So whoever's going to build this has to make some money. So we're going to put something in there, 3.75% or 3.5%. That again changes as you go through, and whoever the best arm wrestler is in town, however they can get that down and or whether the construction company gets that to go up. But that has to be in there, so that's almost $500,000. So that brings us to $14,705,000 or $1,098 a square foot. And everyone is still upright and breathing, so that's not a bad thing.
I'm looking at Mike Guy.
There. Look at Mike and Elaine.
Check them for a
So,
pulse.
He's gone.
again, this is a stake in the ground, but the one thing I want to, there's a couple things I want to cover after this before we get into discussion. The first thing is, if you say, okay, we need $3 million off of this, you don't just take $1,000 per square foot and take whatever square foot it is to get, because it's not how it works. There are certain systems and certain elements of this building that drive the cost up. So if you just take square footage off, it will reduce the cost, but it brings the per square foot cost up. So it's not a formula that you just start taking square foot off the building. So that's, if this number becomes too high, and the mandate to us is to figure out how to get it down to another number, it isn't just reducing the size of the building. It's reducing the magnitude of the building, which is a little bit of everything. Next slide, please. So just to give you perspective, we found a whole list of senior centers that either have been built recently or are in construction currently. So we looked at Upton, which is 15,000 square feet. That was the senior center and library, but very similar building type, so the cost is relevant. That was built for a cost of $12.4 million. That was 2021, so it was probably priced in 20. So it comes in at about $826 a square foot. Long Meadow, which is my former business partner, John, is 18,000 square feet. Long Meadow's a little bit strange because they actually built the gym as part of full-size gym as part of this building for the rest of the town to use. So that brings the cost down a bit, but that went out in 2019 and was built in 20. So that has a much lower cost at $777 a square foot. Wilbraham was 2022, 15,000, almost 16,000 square feet, 13 million. Was constructed in 2021 for about $818 a square foot. And Chatham, which you can't, I will show you, this is Chatham right here. It's 9,200 square feet. It's a very simple building. It's not this elaborate building because we're the Cape, right? So it was $10 million. It's in construction and it is $1,086 a square foot. So it shows us that we're in line with what's happening currently out there. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but I'm just saying that this is not an anomaly. Next slide, please. I think that might be it. Okay, so that's it. What we wanted to do was give you an overview of how we got here and what it takes to build, what it would take to build what we currently have designed. And we have these to hand out to everyone. So you do those. So I'm going to hand out the presentation. John actually has the estimate. The estimate is more than one page. The estimate is that entire booklet. And it actually has all the backup.
We have those numbers available to us for how long?
Yesterday.
For those existing structures?
No, those are on the internet. You just went out there and grabbed them.
I mean, I think we should have started there.
So
We should.
Right, I mean,
We should.
it's kind of, because it's,
Yeah, I agree.
we were at 10 and we're saying, ooh, that's high.
Yeah.
But we already had that information available in terms of size and, you know.
Yeah, last week is when I found that out. And that should have
Thank you,
been
Mike.
3 months ago.
Nice presentation.
4 months ago, 5 months ago.
You can sign this. You can see it.
This is the delivery number.
That's what it was.
But you're right, Mike. I agree. And Mike along the way, I'm gonna put in Mike's plan. Maybe we should have charted you guys out or said, hey, go find out competitive numbers on the front end before we start.
Well, I think the thing is that it has to be apples to apples, right? If we were renovating the other one, the numbers might be a little bit different. But, so once we started down this path, maybe, once we said, let's look at another site and what it costs to build a new one. It doesn't mean you have to be at $1,075 a square foot, Remember, this is also a building that's set up for solar, it's a high performance envelope, so there's some dollars in that. Does not include solar, right on the front cover, they didn't include the price of the solar, but it is solar red. And it is an envelope that is set up to be heated and cooled by heat pumps off solar.
Solar would be an additional cost.
But there's ways to get to solar that it doesn't sit all on your shoulders.
Right.
Right.
I just want to say one thing about the, I do like your design. I actually, on my commute into work, I see two structures, very similar, two houses that, there's one right out North Ave that was constructed after the
Yes.
fire.
Yeah.
Similar, and then there's one in Upton that I passed, and they built the barn, it's part of the house, but it looks like a barn.
Right. We do a lot of houses that look like this, where this barn would actually be like a great room or something.
Very nice.
Can you repeat the cost of the road? Because I feel like when we first mentioned bringing the center to that site, but the cost of the road, I feel like was believed to be more of a marginal amount total. And I think you said it was going to be.
So we are going to have the parking there and also the estimate included the parking lot that was there until yesterday. Right, till we had a meeting and said, let's take that parking out. That's about $1 million to $1.5 million. However, the reason why we do that is because the town needs to decide if that is just a simple driveway to this site, or is it actually going to be constructed to the specs of a town road, such that this is a property off of that road dead ends, but it will serve the rest of the property.
Right now, the estimate is reflecting a road.
It is reflecting
lot,
a road and the parking lot.
So it's road and parking lot together?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So if it were a driveway,
Then at that point, it's much shorter and we configure things differently. You're down on, you're less than $500,000, right? Because you're not putting you don't have to do sidewalks and curb. You can do curbs, but again, we're anticipating that if this has to be a road, it's gonna have sidewalks on one side of it, curb and that sort of thing. Now, if it's a driveway, it probably would want to have a sidewalk you want people to walk to this and not walk in the roadway.
yeah, the question would come up with, when we talk to the town, is, the future plans to do something down the road, if there are, rather than spend some money to build a driveway, then, or should we just?
The driveway, specs for a driveway or what? Less than what it is to do a legal road.
Now,
And then
yes,
it would be named as a road, it would be, whatever, something road, and this is an address on that road, right? Or is it just the driveway to this site? And this site's address is North Avenue.
Using asphalt shingles on the roof.
Yes,
I've been seeing some stuff on solar shingles.
so I use those on one house. They're Tesla. They're very expensive. And the issue is that we found out the hard way that whenever they needed to get up on the roof, and this house has a big center chimney, to service that chimney, it's very challenging because you can damage those shingles very easily. So when the chimney guy goes up to clean the chimney, it's very challenging. So I think there's a place for those. They're very costly, and I'm not so sure they're the best solution.
Just a question, I just wondered.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give you that background. They're a very interesting product, though.
So you looked at the driveway and the parking lot, do you know what the parking lot costs?
Bring all that up.
Do you think that's like $1 million, the
I think
parking
so.
lot on that?
And the roadway, and that roadway went down past, if you shot, when we took
Yeah.
it down, almost to the other property, if you will.
So the estimator I've taken is push the salt up to like a road and really at the high end.
Well, you have to, because otherwise, then your costs, then you're trying to figure out, what if we do a road? Well, I don't know what that is. This is worst case. But this is when it's the time you say, maybe we can't do a road.
Or even if you do the road, just end it past the entrance.
Mhm.
Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Something nice besides Jersey barriers there and almost use it as cars and back in and park.
Yeah, and is there just a cul-de-sac there?
Cul-de-sac, yes, you could tear that apart.
You'd have to have a fire road around the building anyway.
So we do, we have fire access around the building, absolutely.
But instead of carrying that road all the way to the access from the
We
town,
want to give people a place to turn around, so they're not going through the senior center to turn around, parking at the senior center to use, so.
cul-de-sac, something.
I mean, that's again, like the things the town needs to invest.
I can't see paying for the road all the way to another, because if we do another project down the road, then that should be included in that project. To finish the road.
Extending the road, right.
I can see bringing up the road specifications as far as the senior
As far
center.
as the senior center and then end it.
Yes, because you don't wind up with a driveway that's
Yeah.
not gonna hold that.
Okay.
So the way that this really can work is that, we make those assumptions, we run them by PM&C, they revise the estimate to get it to a certain point. And do you want, and you'll, not tonight, that you've got to think about this, you guys have to meet as a committee and toss this around. I just wanted, the first inclination is, well, let's reduce the size of the building, and just reducing the size of the building doesn't necessarily reduce that cost proportionately.
We talked about a garage, pushing that project, but that was like $500,000, $600,000. Is there an alternative, put that as a future project rather than building a three-car garage?
Is the garage gonna be attached to the senior center?
No, it has, you're detaching it because the vans are in it.
Yeah,
And there's also a storage bay for Amy and the senior center team to store the medical equipment that they lend out.
The thing I don't like about putting off the garage, during the pandemic, we utilized our garage completely for food. We had just wonderful response, and so we had the van out for a winter, and it did not fare well.
Yeah.
There's a chance you could get vandalism or anything. I wouldn't like to see the garage project.
Just out of curiosity, Amy, so when you buy a van, what is the cost of the van?
60,000, 65. I mean, that's what it was when we bought this.
So you're probably talking 75 or 80. So, and how long do you typically keep a van?
We had this over 10 years.
And it's been garaged, which has helped that.
Yes.
Right. But it doesn't mean, so the other question would be, when does a second van come into play? And so is it really just building a building for the van and some storage versus a 3-car down to a 2-car?
But we don't want to have to go back and ask the town for more money in a couple of years, saying, oh, we should have done a
Right.
3-car garage. We're looking at this building to look at the future. So we have a lot of durable medical equipment. And, the thing is that we don't want to transfer one of the rooms downstairs now to become a storage facility. I'd like to keep the garage in if we could.
So I'd ask the question, because you're saying, don't just eliminate square footage and expect the cost to go down. So I would go to both of you and say, how do you reduce the cost of this if we intend to try to bring?
So I think it all depends what you want to bring it down to so part of what that does is where do you think you'd like the number to be? And then based upon that, if it wants to go to, 9 million, then that's taking big chunks of the building out, right? If it wants to just get down by 2 million, there's looking at materials, looking at, do we actually do the high performance envelope, or do we define that envelope more for PM&C? So,
Personal opinion, we were at 10. I want to try to get down to 8 based on the original estimates and based on the funding that we were looking at. So we all looked at it and said, well, maybe 10 would be, maybe we could do 10. So what would you do to get this down to 10? And I guess that's
Yeah.
why I was looking for scenarios. 'Cause
Yeah.
I can't tell you how to bring the cost down.
No,
I
we
just
need
know
to,
this
we need
number's
to.
Pretty big.
So what we need to do is go back and then say, okay, here's the options to bring your cost down. Right. So the next meeting, we have to come back and say, okay, here's the options to get you down to that number.
I think at the next meeting also, we should go with this, looking at it at two ways. We're talking $14 million, so let's say it's $15 million. What's it gonna cost us? How long is the debt gonna be in place? So we have some facts on that.
Yeah, we can just plug that into the same thing that's at last meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
If at 10 million, what are we looking at, like $450, $460? $1 million house?
$450 for $1 million, at 14 million, you're roughly at 630 per house, at 14 million.
I know we're saying $1 million house, but these days almost anything's $1 million in them, so.
And the other thing is, that's,
Run it for the same scenarios we did last time.
the only other question I would have, we didn't have, I know it's a one-year scenario, but I would run it for those scenarios. Is there any way we understand what's coming off? So is there anything that's going to lessen the impact?
You got about 270 to 300 coming off over the next like 6 years or so, I think. So by 31, you'd have, for legacy, you'd probably have about $250,000 legacy, right? So we're at $1 million this fiscal year. So over the 6 years, we see some money's coming off. But we've also got other obligations that will need to be taken up. So it's not a single scenario.
Okay.
That's,
There's multiple projects.
Not to mention other requests and
oh yeah.
might be coming forth in the next 3 years.
And then the other question I would have, I always have a question, as far as funding that needs to be targeted for 25, the federal funding,
Mhm.
if there's any availability of that money that's around, because we don't put it to a project. Obviously, we can put it to a bunch of little projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's been brought up a couple times. I
Right.
think the working group will probably have that discussion in the next meeting or two.
Okay.
Just to sort of between ARPA, I mean, stabilization, but we're talking, with these type of numbers, you're talking about 100,000, 200,000 off the top. We need to get the estimate down to a workable number, then bring it down further with existing funds if we can do that.
The other thing is to consider is that we can identify areas that we call ad alternates, right? And then they become areas that the friends could do fundraising and get those items put back in, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's things that, when you think about not going back to the town, some of these things, being a small enough amount, you actually put it back into the normal capital operating budget, which is being developed, so it's more, goes back in as a smaller project, and it comes out of your annual budget and prioritization process, so it's not always going back to say, hey, we need to take more debt out. You're actually building it through CapEx, or building it, it's
There's some money that we normally do as a town.
And also in this fund, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do the old senior center too, because we can't just walk away from that. It's gonna take work to do whatever you're gonna do with it. You're not gonna tear it down.
No,
there's a strong thought, John, that public works and highway.
I agree, but we
Yeah.
still gotta,
That's
it's not
gonna
gonna
be
be
part
free.
of this, yeah.
Right,
It's gonna be part of this fund, I think.
that'll be another department's worry for money.
Or
No, I
it
don't
could
think so. I think
be,
it should be.
should be a question.
but John, it could be something, right now it's listed as a capital project
Yeah.
with the work we're doing as a separate and distinct thing, although we can line them up together. It could be that we adaptive reuse on that building occurs, the senior center comes online, and it might be able to be funded through capital
Yeah, but
operations.
you know, when you go to the town meeting, somebody's gonna ask,
Oh, yeah.
what are we gonna do with that?
I think as long as we have a plan of how it
We're
would be.
gonna have a plan and how much it's gonna cost.
Not
I
the
don't think
cost.
you'll have a cost until you're
Well,
on
that's
it
not a
and you're
fair
ready to
project.
figure out it. And I don't think it
Where
should
the
be,
money's coming from.
I don't think it should be attached to this project because it's no different than the building we left the police station. We didn't,
Aside from the fact that
We
we
didn't
can
fund
say
what's
there is a
happening to
plan
that.
for it. It's not gonna sit empty.
yeah, that we
It
didn't
use
plan.
It's gonna be used.
Yeah, you need
We don't
to,
wanna use it, we don't wanna sit empty for 10 years.
No, I don't think it will. I think there's a line of people who want it.
but that's a new capital project. And if it's the highway department, they can assume it and decide what they want to do with it. And known what it
We
would
call it
cost
a
is.
public works project.
Public works.
Do I have a maintenance group on it? Never mind.
I have a question about the site work, because I guess the site work is a higher number than I was expecting. So is that, can you speculate about how much of that is about the specific site versus like the old site? Because we had shifted our goals from the current site to another site with the idea that it was not going to be, an order of magnitude bigger.
Right, the one was gonna cost the same was my impression.
Let's go reflect back on some of the site comparisons we did.
Right,
With parking issues around it.
right,
We were looking at probably a smaller building at that time.
okay.
We had questions on the non-standard well at that time.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right, so I'm just trying to figure out, I guess there would still be site work at the current site.
A lot.
And that would probably also be probably bigger than I was imagining it would be.
Site work is one of those areas that is gotten very expensive.
Right,
yeah, all this other numbers were just much bigger than that.
So is it fair to say, to sort of building off what Elena is saying, do you feel the site work would be similar in either location?
I do. We're dealing with, unfortunately, because we're dealing with the water supply and storing water for sprinklers on site.
I mean, I do think that's gonna be asked, people will ask
Yes.
why we're
Right.
moving if,
And
Why would we
incurring
make that
costs.
Right.
I think the other site would limit you building wise. I don't know that this building would fit on that site as easily.
We wouldn't be able
And
to add on in the
the
future
parking,
either.
the parking would also not fit on that site,
Right.
so.
You're one and down over there. The other side you do.
Yeah.
And then like you were trying to get the cistern, I mean, it was hard to get it here. I can't imagine putting one on that site. That thing is huge when they brought that in here.
So we just did one on another project that was 24,000 gallons and we had 5,000 gallon tanks in series because of that very reason. There's just no way to get a big tank on that site.
So what number are we going, what number are we asking Mike to come back to us with?
What's the rest of the committee think? Like, eh?
I like the number. Total package right there.
Mhm.
Now, question is, what are we willing to sacrifice? Bring that number down.
Exactly.
I would agree. Good way to say it.
What do we think as a committee will pass? That's part of it too.
I think we need to do.
I like the number two, but
Right, I
that
think-
would pass.
Yeah, I think we need to do the math of the spreadsheet didn't go this high, so, and now I don't remember
I think
what the
Mike
number
had it
is.
correctly. It's $1 million house, six and change.
And
Yeah,
so,
six-
so
an
for
average
the
house.
average house is like for
600,
650,
it's,
so
average house is stated at 600.
650,000, yeah.
We've gotta translate this cost to what you're gonna pay in your taxes, what you're gonna pay in your taxes,
Right,
We
what
can
you're
get that
gonna
out
pay in
tomorrow.
your taxes.
right, okay.
We all have different homes that are valued differently, so we've gotta bring it personally to every taxpayer in this town.
What we did last time, we have a matrix, we can plug this number into, it's at 100,000, 250, 500, 750, a million. And what the impact would be based on 30, 15, 20 year borrowing, et cetera. I'm thinking we're gonna keep this one to 30, is my guess.
I wonder why.
Yeah,
But that should be a quick update and get it back turned around. And I think if we did 3 scenarios, we do 15 and 12 and see what those start to look like. and
Yeah, last time around.
bands.
Last time we did 30, 25, 20, and 15. Yeah, I got it, brother.
so I will say that like Amy, I also do like the design, like I do think that it does fit the Mendon character.
I think sitting on that site would look really kind of stunning.
I think, I would hate to lose the sort of that, I don't know, like, I wouldn't want something that looked like a warehouse up there, and so this,
Well,
but I mean, but if
remember,
there's.
this is gonna be here forever,
Right,
just like our town hall.
right,
Unless the town hall burns down. That town hall right there is gonna be here forever.
right. So
So,
It's over there.
there's a here,
Down there, I think we're gonna sell.
you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
That's why I said, the design is
Yeah.
there, that's what it costs to build that. Right there, no matter what you do, and you drive through town, you're gonna see that. And people are gonna go, that's the senior center, that's the community center.
right. I mean, that, I guess.
Route 16 is gonna be rehabbed, maybe not in my lifetime, but certainly in my son's lifetime.
You're not gonna be alive the next 2 years? We're doing 16 from Milford to
We'll see.
Oxford Road.
He's a veteran. You know, there's no guarantee.
The other thing to remember is that this estimate is also for a building that is durable and is low maintenance. So and if you start cutting, you have to be careful that you don't get into a building that, while the first cost comes down, the cost of ownership goes up. And what's the balance there? And you guys, I'm not trying to talk you into anything, just consider that as you start looking at how you want the numbers to go.
Yeah, I guess,
And when you figure that, the windows, were they high efficiency windows, or high as you can get?
They're not as high,
Mediocre.
no, they're a good middle of the road efficient window. They are not they're not triple glazed. They're a double glazed window. That is a very quality window with a good warranty.
The best Home Depot has to offer.
We typically price out a Marvin window, and we like their Elevate series, which is a good quality window.
Well, again, just by looking at the picture, I can see that 30 years from now, if you gotta replace a bunch of windows, it's not a hard job to do. That's what I see, what you did was, you made it key that the simplicity in it, which is gonna, 50 years from now, the people that are taking over, they're gonna say, boy, thank God they did it like this, because look how easy it is to.
It'll be built with good bones, which is what you need. That said, it needs to be comfortable for you folks.
I think it goes back to that question, what do you think that we can do with the town? We need to run some scenarios, but what's reasonable?
I think you need to think about that.
and what is the acreage that this, I guess it also looks bigger on the map than I thought it was going to. So this lot is, I think, like 25, 26 acres. So looks like it's taking up.
Wasn't it 2 point something? I thought it was like 2 point something acres.
2.5 acres, but remember, because we have a well.
The rest is a 25.
Oh, I
It's-
see. Okay, this is,
Yeah.
And I think some of,
okay.
I think that's outlined as part of the restrictions, so I think it's all.
Got it. Okay, all right, so that's,
It's all.
okay.
Right.
But it's all conservation.
I'm not looking at, okay.
That makes sense.
There's a well and a septic system.
So then this is about, you said 2.5 acres, the sort of where the parking lot.
So look at the
ends.
next page. Which explains that it takes a smaller piece of it, which is the 2.5 acres. Now, mind you, what has to be considered is that a well and a septic on the same site require distance apart. So you've got to be sure that we have ample, and this is a big septic system. It's not like your 3 or 4 bedroom you have at home. And it's also, a well for this building is considered a public water supply. So it falls under the same category as if the town put in a well to serve all and create a water system.
So given the space that's needed for that, how many acres are being used? Not just the footprint, but generally, you got 25 acres, how many acres are going to be allocated to this?
So we're living within our 2.5 acres.
Okay, it's all-
Right. So other other projects would still have.
Right, because those radiuses can go out to the next, to over your property line, right? It's just that the next, if something goes in the next lot, they have to live within those radiuses.
So a non-town built a building in there, we use that well, public water supply.
You potentially could.
Good.
Yep.
If it puts enough gallons in it.
It's exactly
If
right.
the yield is there.
And so you,
If the yield is there.
Yeah, that's a gallon per minute.
especially, another town building might be a low-use building, so
Yeah, you
therefore,
don't know what it is.
right.
I'm just,
Can we commercialize that one building on the corner? Because that's the only thing that's not town. A corner lot, share the well.
That puts the town at liability. I'm not sure the town would want that, because then that's a municipal water, which is a whole
there's
nother,
already a well,
Never mind, scratch, never mind.
It's an easement.
there's a good well on that one.
is there? Yeah.
Very good well.
There's all those restrictions that start to put the town in a
Never mind.
position that it would, my opinion, it probably wouldn't want to be.
And to me, you just want to, I think you're saying it's down the hill. We don't want to, we want to understand what the impact there is,
Yep.
or lack thereof, hopefully.
Mhm.
So we can see some more work done there.
I'm thinking we're gonna get that from Mike Mead.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Yeah.
I think some of the site stuff will continue to iron out with Mike Dean as he continues
Yeah,
his,
I've got-
his sketch. Yeah.
I mean, he's not doing full site design. So
No.
mind you, we're not going to have a full set of construction documents from a civil engineer that we could get a better estimate.
That comes out for,
That comes, but if this moves forward. He'll get us closer. Everybody's still sitting upright and breathing.
I was hyperventilating for a moment.
How do you go, something like this, is there a way we can start to get any sense of operating costs? Because I think the other thing, Amy, we got to worry about is what is your operational budget start to look like with something like this? That's going to be a question we get asked.
I can work on that, okay? And I'll make assumptions that match with what we've priced as far as envelope. And then we have a mechanical engineer that we work with daily. And I can ask her to just run us some numbers about operational costs using heat pump systems and what this might look like.
Maybe what solar panels would do. I know there would be a cost to solar panels, but there are some new federal incentives for green energy.
Right.
But, but it's, not, it's like 30%. It's sort of more comparable to like the tax credits that
Mhm,
homeowners get.
mhm.
But I know like it would offset the operating costs. a
What we
lot.
can also get is, we can get from her an estimate based upon the building size and type of what its use might be from terms of electricity. And then give us the size of the solar array that would be required for this, so that you can run some numbers on that.
and do we have a contract with solar companies now that put solar fields out there? Okay, so could we have them be part of put a solar on top of the roof and they pay for it?
They want the
Oh.
profit.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put solar on the roof. There's plenty of land there, put a solar field out somewhere.
We already got one over there, but it's not ours. It's a tip on that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want one of the roof.
No. So there's plenty of room to put a solar field in there.
And then it serves more than this building, right? And you start to have a field that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But the
exactly.
building, but the building will be set up to receive solar energy and be lower consuming.
And negotiate some of that land for a solar farm, and then negotiate back and forth.
Right.
That's down the road.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think a few points you made, Mike, none of those things come into play for this town meeting.
No, that would be,
We have to go for whatever nut we come up with, and then if we can make it better as we go forward, because we're more creative and come up, even, we talk about, funding, charitable funding, you can't get somebody to sign up for, I'll give you $3 million between here and the town meeting, so, if we get $3 million later, with the thing, we targeted, easy collection amendment.
Sure. Diane has a question.
Please.
How much longer are the schools gonna last?
Which one, Misco?
Either one.
Well, Misco's new.
Oh.
So I hope nothing. Misco.
No, Misco's,
Clough.
Clough is new.
Oh, yeah, Clough is new.
Yeah,
So Misco,
Misco's from the 60s.
a good makeover.
And they got a new roof.
Well, 20 years ago, they redid everything.
No,
But I
Misco's
guess-
got, that's a new roof. Clough, Memorial, and high school need new roofs in the next 3 years.
Well, I know Milford is they're looking to build $100 million high school.
It's cheap.
That's cheap.
That is cheap.
We just voted down a 11-town vote tech that they wanted $500 million price tag on. We got voted down.
Yeah, schools are big.
And they're, what, 200, 250 for, in Central Mass, there's a few that have been approved for about 200, 250 right now.
Yeah, this one was Whittier, it was gonna be the most expensive school in the state. But I think, you
Talking
know,
schools like that and the expense of that, they're usually towns and cities that have a very good tax base.
so this is
Milford
11
happens
towns,
to have a
towns
very
that
good
don't.
Tax base.
Right. So, but you're like, so is Misco, so which is the older school?
Misco's the middle school.
That's elementary?
It's middle.
Middle. Yeah, middle schools are typically.
That's the one across from the Hopefield Street
Yeah.
Farms.
We just came by.
That's historic though, right? Aerosmith played there, so I think you can
Yes.
wait with that. You have to leave it and preserve it.
Right.
Yeah. You have to preserve that.
Yeah.
There's a promotion to try to get.
Elementary schools have a longer life than high and middle schools, but.
It was a high school and then, you know, it wasn't 20 years, it was 1999. The high school moved out and we got it, because I remember doing the building checks for a year and a half in there. It was just empty, we've gotten the whole thing and changing it all over. So it's a repurposed school, high school.
Let's kind of recap some action items here. I think we're at that point, or we want to chat a little more? We can chat as we go, I'm just trying to figure out. Gonna rerun the numbers, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mike P, we're gonna look at,
I think we'll look at some things. I think what I'd love to see you folks do is run your numbers and then kind of think about where you want to be. Is in terms of the high-end number. And then we have to, then we'll come up with ways that we can get you there, and then we'll meet with you and review that, here are your
It's the
options.
same way we're running numbers to understand the financing. You know, why, rather than waiting to hear from us, why not say, we know what 15 brings us, right? If we can get to 12 or to 10,
Okay,
you know, go that way. That, because it seems to me you're going to look at certain things and say, we're going to reduce that, whatever that is, $1 million there, we can reduce it this way, right? So
Mhm.
whatever you do,
mhm,
it's almost modular, right?
it is.
Yeah, so, I mean, you look at it and say, the guy in the sweatshirt in the back clearly wants a lower number, how do we make it, right? I mean, that's, you know, go in that direction and see what the opportunities, I can't tell you what the opportunities
Now,
are.
you're the most experienced, would you say, try and, what do we have to do to get it down to 12 million?
Yeah.
Or 11 million, whatever we want.
Okay.
What do we have to do that?
Because there's some, but I mean, what you're cautioning us on holds true. You want it to be solid, sturdy, mitigate operational costs going forward, right? And if you start to do that, you're saying, well, Mike, then the easy thing is we would not do any finishing on the bottom floor. I don't know. You know what I mean? So you can kind of see where the opportunities are and just say, this is an opportunity. I don't know if you want to take it or not,
Mhm.
you know?
So we'll do that.
so we're looking at, what number you're gonna try.
We're gonna see what does it take to get to 12 and can we get to 10 and what does that do?
Right, different options.
Yeah, good.
While you're running the exercise.
And what does it take to get there? Here's the things it would take to get there, and do you want to sacrifice this, or is it like, you know what? And I think that's fiscal responsibility on your part to do that, to say, and then you may say, you know, what, we don't think we should do that. But you've done your homework.
Well, yeah, an example point would be that road, you know, it's either a road or a drive.
We have to document it so that no matter what the number is that we agree to, for lack of a better term, sell, we can explain how we got there. Hey,
Right.
we started off with this number here, this number, this number, this number. Looking at it, it's like buying a car.
Yep.
You want the $4,000 car or the 20,000 Subaru? You know, or what's in between? The option goes
Unused.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's a transparency that when you go to pitch this, you have to, because someone's gonna ask all those
That's,
questions.
I mean, that's
And you
gonna give us
want the answers.
credibility,
Yes, it does.
so.
And that's why we're here. So, we're gonna need at least a couple of weeks. It's gonna be at least 2 weeks before we get that. I need to talk to PM&C and see when they can get with us, so we can sit around the table with them and toss some things around. I also need to do some homework on some of these systems to get some numbers on that. So
The due diligence will be, I wanna make sure.
it is. I mean, you don't want to rush that because then it's just like, well, we think it's this. And I don't want to think. I want to say, here it is,
Yeah, I want to, yeah, factual data.
right?
Well, we do want to think, right? We want to think this through a little
You know,
bit.
it's a
You want to
week.
think it through, not you like, well, I think it'll be there.
So our next, I think this is the biggest thing we need to go around, so I think we meet in 2 weeks.
I mean, it does strike me that the communication and messaging part is going to be really important because this is, I think there's going to be some sticker shock, no matter what. So,
To that point, I think, Peg and Tom and myself went over to Upton, and they sold that big as a community center. They sold it big as a library, obviously. Library is a drag.
Right.
But the community center piece of that, they had some creative ways to make that building more attractive to a younger audience.
mhm.
And I don't, just things like, they offer their kitchen and one of their rooms for the community.
Right.
They have to fund the costs, the cleanup costs, etc. But they've arranged it some way that they offer that area for. And the community, do kids' birthday party, graduation party. I got a picture from that hillside. That's a beautiful view out there. You could do a wedding out of it.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
What should we get for functions if we start doing that?
Well, I was thinking, I have creative solutions as a sign, DBA. No, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that have to be done to do that, but there's things like the downstairs areas. We could run programs potentially in the evening, which would attract to the working people in town. My daughter would go to a yoga class if it were in the morning. But if it were at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night.
You have that already.
Well, we had about, we're talking about, most of the people that are coming to it are seniors that could come in the morning. So,
But I mean, there was a bunch of creative things we could think about. Because the community piece is going to be important. Peg and Tom, you're driving that section, but it's the senior community center.
Be careful because that does expose the interior of the building and then all the security of all the spaces. And it puts a lot of burden on the people at the senior center to have to prep this thing, to put stuff away and make sure everything's out of sight, locked up, which they put stuff away anyway, but then to secure it so, the rec department can use it for something becomes very challenging. Hence the room downstairs, which has its own vestibule, its own restroom, it's locked out.
Yeah.
But just as you think about that, it's easier said than done.
If I might, want to throw something out there. So if we're looking to evaluate the current proposal from a cost perspective, we're trying to bring down costs. And I read the term sacrifices kind of utilized there. With those sacrifices that might have to be made for this current proposal, potentially take us back to either study 1 or study 2 as options, not to go backwards with the process that's been going on, but study 1 and study 2 kind of
Right.
really off the table.
Well,
It does
study-
make me wonder what they would cost now. 'cause
Study
time
one,
has
now,
passed.
see, so study one was a bigger building, which because it was so long ago, it had a lower cost. But if you were to take that 14,000 square feet, put our $1,000 a square foot, it actually goes up to 14 million.
15 million over 50. And I did that exercise within the slides, that's why I had the calculator. open.
So, and then if I look at study two, you know, that is probably less than 1,000 a square foot, but it's still up there. It's in the 700-800, so it's not as inexpensive, because we did those numbers back in 2021.
And that would be a lot less parking also, right?
Yeah, well, that site, there was an acre next
The acre,
door.
we were looking at that.
Yeah, we were using that acre
Parking
next
being
door
an
for
acre
parking.
that the
So
town had bought.
So when we actually put the report together and the information that you're really gonna use, once this is finalized, we're gonna include the site plan for that, for all of those, so that you have that. I can't include everything for one, but I can include everything for two, but it'll all be there.
If you think about the cell, I think cost avoidance is something you should start thinking about. I'm thinking from a capital standpoint, what other ideas are out there that are gonna cost us money that perhaps we can leverage this center to do more, right? And even I think the idea of the adaptive reuse for public works
Right.
of that building,
Right.
that is part of the benefit of doing
You're gonna
this
save
is
money
reducing
because
the
they're gonna have
costs
to-
on already happening.
That's a 10-foot.
But what else is out there, right?
Yeah.
Who else is looking to have something done?
Well, not only that, I mean, a Howie Barn is 40 years old. Close to it.
Right.
And they're gonna have to expand. Now they can expand because it's senior
Right,
center.
so,
They're gonna have to go
so
through another
to me, that's
$10 million
that cost
building.
avoidance by doing, yes, big number,
Right.
but we're gonna reduce costs in the long term here.
Over there.
Right, right, yeah,
That's
so,
right.
right,
we
so
gotta
what would
Make
it
sure
cost?
that we tell them what we're gonna do with the senior center, what's
Right.
in there to bring the cost.
And we can do a swag on that stuff. We can say,
Yeah,
that's $1 million project. If if this is 15 million and we've got a new highway barn plus offices, that's another 15 million, but we think we can do it for $1 million. So we just say 14, we almost paid for itself.
There.
I mean, a done deal.
What do I
You'll be
say?
the spokesperson.
Your other careers with cars?
We maybe gonna show escalation too,
Yeah.
because I mean, 5 years ago, we started
Right.
building this building, and we did this for 6.5 million. I think this building right now would be 12 million all day long,
I do too.
12 million.
I think.
So if we would have waited 5 years, we
Mhm.
would have doubled our costs.
So you
what's
could
it
use
gonna
the
be with that building?
escalation.
It's 15 now, but what's it gonna be in 5 years?
So you could-
25 million?
You can use the escalation that's there and just multiply it.
Oh, yeah, you had a factor in there.
We did. It seems to have stabilized at about 5%, but it was as high as
That was
8
crazy.
or 9% for a while, year over year.
It might be useful to also say what the Upton Senior Center, since, people are gonna look at that one and say like, okay, well, that was already several years ago, so what would that be now?
That's in here.
That- Okay, that.
Yeah, and you
14
could
million.
you could actually just substitute this $1,080 or $90 for the square
For
foot
the square
number.
footage, yeah.
Yeah, those are.
And ours will look better. This doesn't
Oh, I
look
know,
better.
this, yeah, that-
I mean, you think at Chatham is doing theirs for the same price, right? And they're only getting 9,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the Upton data, they did talk about how much, because it took so long to make a decision, it cost them an additional $3 or $4 million to build it, because the time lag to get there.
North Andover went through that. The original budget on that building was $5.5 million. And they got into an argument between planning and zoning, which delayed the project for 2 years, and they had to go back to the town for another $3 million.
We don't want to have to do that.
I think the financials will take care of themselves in terms of the cell. I think the question everyone's gonna be prepared to answer is, what are we gonna do with all that space? And highlight the benefits. That's gonna be the biggest thing, because people get past the dollars, but the knee-jerk reaction is, like, why do we need all that space?
Yes, it is.
It's gonna be the biggest municipal building we have. By far.
Justification.
And it's more about the program we can bring, the benefits that brings. Clearly, Massachusetts at the NMA, Laura Healy talked about how over 65 demographics increased by like 35% in the last X number of years. So that's the biggest selling point.
Maybe we can start on that. Amy and Peg, Maybe,
Karen?
Karen?
We could use a list of, because we're going to write up a report that we give you that has all this in it. So we need, the narratives need some of this information to talk about what programming would be in these spaces.
So I left it at the center, but I brought in a newsletter from my town, going from the basement of a town hall to, and I don't know the square footage of our building. It's incredible. They've got 12 pages of a newsletter, just activity after activity after activity, because they have the space to do it. I mean, it just.
That's true with all of them. We can help you, but I want to see what yours, what
Yeah.
you have in mind for yours, right?
Amy, you're busy, you're just getting new people. Maybe I could stop by and help put that together. with
Yeah, right
Karen.
now, I've got my annual report. I've got 2 annual reports, one for the state, one for.
And training.
You don't have to do
Training
anything.
a new person.
Just give us
Straight out.
just give us the brochure. We
Yep.
can translate. it. You don't have to do anything.
Something Amy just said kind of reminded me of a meeting that we had in Upton. And you talked about all the ability of these added programs. And one of the things I got from them there is the unanticipated interest in the building after it was built. So it was almost kind of like build it and
They
they
will
come.
come.
And so I found that was pretty interesting.
Good comment. by
Both
Steve.
Walpole and Wellesley have people coming from neighboring towns to their senior center because they're so much nicer than the ones in the neighboring towns.
And I believe he's gotten calls up there from people outside of Upton as well.
I believe.
But to Mike's point too, you gotta do an analysis just not on the cost, of what it costs to run the building, utilities, what it's gonna cost for staff. How that's gonna change operational, because if all these people come, you can't run with the staff you're running now. You barely can run what you're doing with the staff you have now as it is.
Exactly.
And
So-
you can help me with this, because you probably paid more attention than I did, but we went upstairs where all the HVAC and all the stuff was run. And it's like everything is inside the building, and that would be the same with ours.
Under that roof.
We haven't hired somebody.
That's what
to
they
do
did.
that.
They put it under the
We
roof.
put it up and that's what, when you're gonna do a gable roof, you need to use that space. It can't just be there to make it look pretty.
There's a big service in it, so much easier.
They had all their infrastructure, if you will, for heating, water, everything upstairs, and all their electricity.
They had a computer running everything.
Oh, yeah.
There's only one guy that knows how to work it.
Oh, that's right.
I got his name.
Instead of a tool bag, I use a laptop.
Exactly.
But,
This tool.
Make way, make way.
This is his tool bag right here. Just operate it from this. There you go. All right, so 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay, we'll plan on it.
Same
13th.
place, same station.
2 weeks, what's the date?
The 13th of February?
Wait.
13th, yes.
Make sure we don't have.
Here?
Mhm.
Yeah, double check your.
6:30?
No, I'm open.
Oh, yeah, I have that land use committee meeting,
What, what?
land use committee meeting at 7.
We're using some.
Take some bids on the other acres.
I'll set up the agenda, so
Okay,
we'll go from there.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for putting this together. Thanks for any ideas, suggestions, write them down as we get together. Right? Feel free to forward questions and stuff, myself and John over there if you want to.
There's a couple, actually, there's extra.
You've got one? Okay, I guess, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Lonnie, have anything to say?
Lonnie, do you have-
Hey, Lonnie, did you have anything to say?
He's been on here?
Yeah, he's been-
I gotta put that in there.
Aye.
Hi and bye.
Any comments,
We
Lonnie?
didn't notice if anybody wanted to say anything. Did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good, thank you, thank you.
Mark?
No, I'm all set for now, thank you.
It's a big demand.
Dave Dimash is your interim town
Right, I
manager.
don't know. If you man.
Oh, you are?
We'll give you credit for coming to the meeting.
There you go, Lonnie. Hey, we'll send you electronic copies, Lonnie.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. John with the whole, we're doing the CA on fixing up our A-series.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.